Hey, what's up guys, it's Steve. So today we are going to turn a Raspberry Pi into a retro gaming machine. So let's go. Alright guys, so first things first, if you like tutorials like this, I'll be doing a bunch more, so please hit that subscribe button. If you already have a Raspberry Pi, you can skip past this intro part. I'll put a link down in the description to skip you right past it and get you right to the tutorial. If you don't have a Raspberry Pi, I got the Cana kit off of Amazon. It was 50 bucks. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out. And it comes with the Raspberry Pi version 3, the power supply and case all in one kit. Kind of everything you need. The only other thing you need is a micro SD. So I'm going to go ahead and tear into this guy, do a quick unboxing here. So the first thing we get is the 2.5 amp power supply. So that's just a, basic micro USB power supply. Next thing is the case. It's just a nice little plastic case, nothing more than an enclosure to keep it from having the bare circuit board hanging around. The last thing is the Pi itself. Here it is in a little baggie, all the instruction books for it. So here is the Raspberry Pi version 3. So we're going to take these guys. Using the tutorial that I linked below, we're going to go ahead and load everything on it. I have my micro USB card. This is actually a 200 gigabyte card and the little adapter so I can pop it in my laptop and go through the tutorial part. So let's get to that now. Alright guys, so here we are on the PC. I have my micro SD card inserted in the adapter. So what you're going to want to do is click on that link in the description and get to this RetroPie site. This is going to walk you through the installation. You can do this on Windows, Linux, or Mac. I'm going to do it on Windows just because honestly, that's the most prevalent operating system. So there's nothing wrong with doing it on any of the other ones. It's just this is the most common installation most likely. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to this link and download the appropriate version of the RetroPie software. I'm using the Pi 3. If you're using the 2 or 3, you're going to click on this button. If you're using the Pi 0 or 1, you're going to click on this button. If you get the Cana kit like I did, it's going to be the Raspberry Pi 3. So just click on that. It's going to download a archive and it'll save it on your system. Next thing you're going to want to do is download 7-zip if you don't already have it. Here's a link in the instructions to get it. And you're also going to want to get Win32 Disk Imager. So once you have those two things installed, if you go into 7-zip, in 7-zip, I'm going to navigate out to my downloads folder, which I'm already in here, and load up my RetroPie image, and then I'm going to extract it. And I think I'm just going to put it into my temp folder, into a RetroPie directory. Wait for that to finish. Alright, so that's done. So if we go out to that directory now, we should see we have an image file now. That's good. So next we're going to load up the Win32 Disk Imager. And I am going to open that archive that we just extracted. And we're going to load up this image file. Now this is the important part. The device you're going to be writing to is in the upper right hand corner, so you want to make sure that that's your micro SD card. So you can do that if you come into here, go to this PC, and then I have 2 hard drives here, and then I have this SDXC, which is my my SD card, my external SD card. So mine is E. Yours may be different depending on how many drives you have. So just make sure wherever you have that drive mounted, that's the one that you have selected in Win32 Disk Imager. Otherwise you may hose up one of your hard drives. So really that should be all that's needed. You just load up the image, make sure you have the right device selected, and hit write. It's going to tell you, that it's going to wipe it out. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes. And then this might take a while, so I'll probably speed up the video at this point. Alright guys, so here we go, write successful. So we should have our RetroPie written too. If we go back out to E, we can see there's a bunch of space used. It's only showing 36 megabytes of 56 megabytes, where before it was showing about 8 gigs. That's because a lot of that space used by the system is not visible in Windows, so don't think that your card got corrupted or anything like that. So that's all we should need to do on the computer. The rest is all done on the Pi itself. So I'm going to take the card out, pop it in the Pi, and show you guys the boot up. I'm going to have to point the camera at my monitor and do it that way. I apologize for that. I don't really have another good way to capture the output from the Raspberry Pi. So let's jump into that portion. Alright, so I had to reshoot this portion of the video on a different day. I went to edit this and realized I didn't have any of my camera settings right, so everything was completely washed out and you couldn't see anything. So because of that, I've already mounted my Raspberry Pi into the case. It was really easy. You just slide it into the base at the bottom and basically snap the middle on top of that, being careful not to crush any of the inputs on the device, and then slide the top on as well. Also, in the Cana kit came 2 heat sinks, so I placed those on as well. But that's all I've done, and I'm going to go through the initial setup on the RetroPie again. So really the only thing we need to do at this point, I have my SD card mounted into the SD card slot that we did in the last portion, and all we need to do is hook up our HDMI, plug in the 360 controller and a keyboard, because we'll need that keyboard to control or configure the Wi-Fi connection, and then we'll plug in the power. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just gonna plug in my HDMI cable here, and then in the back I'll plug in my 360 controller, and then I just have this little USB keyboard. Plug that guy in, and then we'll go ahead and power up the Pi. And there's no power button on this thing, so you just power it up by plugging it in, and you see that little red LED in the front come on, and then on that monitor in the background that's blurry right now, you'll see the splash screen. So let's jump into the setup of the RetroPie. Alright guys, so a little word of warning: when you first start up the RetroPie, it takes a really long time to boot on first boot, so don't get discouraged by that. Just give it time. Eventually it'll come to a welcome splash screen, and then it'll detect your controller and bring you to this configure input screen. So this screen, we're just going to go ahead and it said it detected the gamepad, but at this point it doesn't know what gamepad it is. So we're going to go ahead and hold the A button on our device, and you can see it recognizes that it's the 360 controller. And then from here we just go through the buttons and set up the different buttons on the controller. So we got D-pad up, D-pad down, left, right, start, select, A, B, X, Y, left shoulder, left trigger, right trigger. The left thumb is pushing in the left thumbstick, right thumb is pushing in the right thumbstick. Then we got left analog up, down, left and right, right analog up, down, left and right. And then OK to continue. That should take a second there and then bring us back. Okay. If we quit out of here, so here we are at the main screen, and this main screen, the only option right now is the RetroPie, and we have the configuration sub item there. The reason why there's no other emulators showing up in here is because we don't have any ROMs loaded at this point. So the first thing we need to do is set up Wi-Fi, unless you use the Ethernet port on the Raspberry Pi and have it hooked directly into your network. So we're going to go into configuration and then go down to Wi-Fi here. And you can do all this configuration with the 360 controller. So we're going to connect to a Wi-Fi network, and I'll just select my network here, and then I'm going to type in my password. This is where the USB keyboard comes in. And really, this is the only time that you actually need a keyboard, at least that I've found, unless you're going into some of the actual configuration files, which honestly you could probably do that over the network. So now you can see that it gave us an IP address, and it shows us the Wi-Fi network that we're connected to. So let's go ahead and exit out of here. And then at this point, the RetroPie shows up on the network, and from a Windows machine, we can access it just by loading up a Explorer window or going to Run, and then go into whack RetroPie. So I'm going to show you that piece now, and then we'll come back and check out one of the games. Alright guys, so back on the PC here, I am going to go follow these instructions. So the default username is Pi, default password is Raspberry, and we're going to try using the Samba shares since I am on a Windows machine here. So I'm just going to go out to RetroPie. It didn't prompt me this time because I've already logged into here with those credentials. So I'm going to go into ROMs and find, I know it's in here somewhere, SNES. I'm loading over one of my SNES ROMs, and I actually own this cartridge. So if you're going to use these ROMs, please guys make sure that you're doing it with cartridges that you actually own. Go out to a thrift store or something, find the cartridge and buy it. They're pretty cheap, and then you can use the ROM guilt-free. Okay, so that's copied over, and let's jump back over to the Raspberry Pi and see what happens. Alright guys, so back in RetroPie, even though we've copied that over, we can see that there's still not a menu item for it. So what we need to do is hit start to go to menu, and then we're going to quit and just restart the emulation station. We don't need to restart the whole system. So we're going to restart, and there may be another way to do this, which I don't know. So now it takes us back to the main menu, but you can see we have Super Nintendo Entertainment System here because I copied an SNES ROM over. And then when we go in here, it'll show us the ROM. Now initially, you probably won't see the metadata related to the ROM that you loaded. Again, I had to reuse this one because this is one that I actually own. And like I said, I had previously set this up. So if you don't see the art for the box and the metadata related to your game, you can go into the menu, go into options and edit this game's metadata, and then it'll automatically put in the name of the game based off the ROM, but it won't have any of this other stuff. So what you do is you go down here to scrape, and then it'll show you a bunch of options of you know, what game it is, and you select the appropriate one. This one, it's the top item, so we're going to select that. And it's basically just reloading the information that I already had, but you know, if this was a new ROM, you would do that and then hit save, and then you would have all that artwork there. So let's go into the ROM itself and check it out. And right now I don't have any sound set up on this, on the Pi, because the sound is probably going through my HDMI controller, and I don't have any sound hooked up to the monitor right now, and I don't have any external sound. But the sound does work. So let's go ahead and skip through some of this just so you can see the performance of the game. Select a new file. All right, and then the gameplay does take a little bit to get used to, at least for me, because I keep wanting to use the analog stick, and it doesn't work in this game. You have to use the D-pad. But other than that, everything works really well. You can see that the performance is great on it. There's no stutter. Oh, that was terrible. There's no stutter or anything. So it's very responsive. I mean, it's just like playing the actual Super Nintendo. To exit out of a game, it took me a while to figure it out, but you hold the back and the start button together. That dumps you out of the game and brings you back to the main menu. And then you can get back into your system. If you want to shut it down or restart it, you just hit the start button, go to quit, and then you can restart the system or just the software, or shut down the system, or just shut down the software if you want to get to the core OS. And that's about it, guys. I mean, the process is exactly the same for whatever other system you want that RetroPie supports, and there's a long list of emulators that it supports, but you just copy them over, and then once it detects there's a ROM in that the appropriate folder, which is already pre-built on the system, it'll automatically start up or put an entry for that emulator in there. All right, guys, so that's it. Setting up the Raspberry Pi 3 as a retro gaming machine was pretty easy using RetroPie. Again, the link to that and the software you need is in the description. All the link to Amazon if you want to get the Cana kit that I got. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Please leave any suggestions, and rate and share the video. Again, subscribe if you like these kinds of videos. I'll be doing more of these, more reviews, and I might even do some gameplay videos on some indie games. There's some stuff that I've been playing lately that is I've really been enjoying it, and there's not a lot of stuff on YouTube about it. So thanks guys for watching, and I will see you next time.